Hey guys, welcome to Listen Chump. My name is Sam. 2019 was a very eventful year in tennis, with a lot of young players emerging and older ones having difficulties. And by the way, when I say tennis, I mean men's tennis. Not that I dislike women's tennis, but I don't watch it that often in comparison. I don't dislike women, it's just women. Women can do so many things. Cooking in the 69. I didn't say that.
That's your uncle talking.
Well, one thing that cracks me up when you compare men's and women's tennis is the handshake. Men handshakes tend to be very bromance, and sometimes even more.
Maybe we ought to give those two a moment alone.
Now let's see women. Now, as I said, there's been a lot of movement last season in the ATP, so let's check it out first with the unavoidable trio of players, the Big Three. The player who's been
the number one
for most of the year was Novak Djokovic, but he had a lot of ups and downs, especially when compared to Nadal. Usually when he dominates, but in 2019 it was not so evident. At the beginning of the year, he won a record-breaking 7th Australian Open title, and his lead seemed assured.
7 Australian Opens, 15 slams.
Not too bad.
Not too bad.
Afterwards, he started to have some difficulties, losing easily against Kohlschreiber in Indian Wells, against Bautista Agut in Miami, and against Medvedev in Monte Carlo. Then he started to look better again, as he won the title in Madrid, and his 16th Grand Slam title
Not too bad.
at Wimbledon, and an incredible 5-hour match against Federer, where he saved 2 match points. Then again, he had some trouble at the US Open with shoulder pain, which made him quit after a few matches. He remained a winner though, as he won the title in Tokyo in his first appearance there, but lastly he didn't do so well at the Nitto ATP Finals, as he was quickly out after winning only 1 match and losing to Thiem and Federer. So a lot of ups and downs this season. We all know one thing for sure: Novak Djokovic has a big ambition and skill and won't let go anytime soon. I wonder what Rafael Nadal would say about his last season. Well, it wasn't my best year, I had a lot of physical issues, it was very tough, but I did my best. Very happy to be number 1 again, I didn't win Nitto this year, maybe it'd be easier if it was on clay. It would be unbelievable, but I did not want to. Well, to add to that, I showed a graph of his performance in tournaments. Well, first of all, he seems to like semifinals. But here's the same one with his injuries and withdrawals. Nadal often had trouble beginning on hard courts, and quicker entry assured when he withdrew from Brisbane, when he had knee problems at the Australian Open final, and when he lost quickly in Acapulco and had to withdraw at the semifinals in Indian Wells. He then lost in 3 consecutive semifinals, which would be the dream of most players, but for him, not too good. After Madrid, Nadal found his pace and won 4 of his next 5 tournaments. First Rome by beating Tsitsipas and Djokovic, then the French Open by beating Federer and Thiem, then Montreal, then finally his 19th Grand Slam trophy at the US Open by beating a rising Medvedev. It went so well, but then he got hurt again at the Laver Cup in Paris and didn't go too far at the ATP Finals by first losing to Zverev. But the Spaniard still got back to number 1 before the end of the season, and that's really something. Before talking about Roger Federer, I'd like a moment of silence for his last break points. Now, as you all know, of course, Federer was named the most stylish man of the decade by GQ magazine. Don't know why Murray didn't get it, but a few of you may also know that he won his 100th title in Dubai by beating Tsitsipas in straight sets, to whom he lost in the Australian Open just before that.
History continues to be made by Roger Federer.
He then went to a final in Indian Wells, won another title in Miami, and went back to clay courts for the first time in years, which earned him the run to the semis at the French Open. After winning his third title of the season in Halle, Federer fought and nearly won an incredible final against Djokovic in Wimbledon. He then had a little bit of trouble by losing quickly to Rublev in Cincinnati and having a bit of back problems at the US Open. The Swiss won his 103rd title at the Basel tournament and was the oldest player to win one at 38. Although he was stopped at the semifinals by Tsitsipas at the Nitto ATP Finals, Roger Federer looks like he's still here to stay. Now the big three were not the only ones to have a bit of trouble with injuries and stuff. In fact, a lot of players from their generation had it worse. Take for example one of my favorite players, Juan Martín del Potro. Since his injury in Shanghai in October 2018, he couldn't compete for several months, but when he did, he managed to kick some butt. In Rome, he defeated David Goffin and almost ousted Djokovic.
Oh, you're kidding me! How on earth has he pulled that off?
Of course, we saw what every Del Potro fan was waiting for, the hammer forehands.
Lift off.
お前はもう死んでいる。何？起きたなDel Potro.
Sadly, his kneecap injury came back at the Queen's Tournament after a fall, so I wish him the best in his comeback this year. After his best season so far in 2018, Kevin Anderson started this year well by winning a new title in Pune. Right after that, he started to have problems. First, an elbow injury that sidelined him for a while until Miami, and after that, a knee injury that took out half of his season. He's supposed to come back at the ATP Cup, and I wish him to get back on track. Of course, I must talk about the former number one, Andy Murray. He suffered a slow downfall due to injuries, and after a hip operation, he announced a sad decision to retire after a remarkable career.
You know, I can't, I can't keep doing this, and that I needed to have like an end point.
That's right. After several months, Murray came back to challengers and eventually won the Queen's Double title in June with Lopez. He continued his run and gave good matches to players like Dominic Thiem, Matteo Berrettini, and Fabio Fognini. I wonder what happens when one of the most irritable players on the circuit plays against one of the most arrogant.
6 games to 5.
He shouts, yeah, shut up! And
Figures. His comeback culminated in his first title in 2 years when he defeated Stan Wawrinka in Antwerp in one hell of a match. Wawrinka is another example of a good comeback by a 3-time Grand Slam winner. Despite his struggle with injuries throughout the year, he managed to go to final in Rotterdam and Antwerp and produce great performances, like his incredible 5-hour match against Tsitsipas. Of course, other prominent players had struggles. Isner had foot problems for a while and skipped several tournaments, Raonic's back problem followed him, and Nishikori couldn't play since the US Open. On the other side, 2019 has witnessed a lot of new talents winning their first title and rising through the ranking. This was not the best year for Alexander Zverev, especially at the beginning, but he didn't go too far. After Acapulco and until Madrid, he never won more than one match at a time, and was defeated by much lower ranked players like Muna, Yari, and even Veseli in Wimbledon, who was ranked 124. This was the most depressing moment for him, and his prospects seemed bleak for a moment.
Yeah, my confidence is below zero right now.
Many double faults later.
Double faults, he did a lot, almost as much as smash rackets. And in fact, he was number one in that category for Grand Slams with 131 for 10 matches. But Zverev bounced back. At the Laver Cup, his team showed a lot of confidence in him by letting him play the decisive match against Raonic. Winning it gave him a boost. He then went to a Masters 1000 final in Shanghai and then another final in Peking. The ATP final were representative of his year, as he did well for a moment by defeating Nadal and the weird Medvedev, but got beaten by Thiem and Tsitsipas, who both showed more spirit. Talking about Tsitsipas, the Greek continued his trust from last year and got to be 6th in the rankings. He started big by getting to the Australian Open semi-finals by beating Federer, and then winning 2 titles at Marseille and Estoril. He took part in an incredible match with Wawrinka, which I already talked about, but after that he got a little bit of trouble. I see he got close to Nick Kyrgios. I hope Kyrgios won't be a bad influence on him.
And you're all weirdos. You're all weirdos.
Tradition point penalty, Mr. Tsitsipas.
Of course. Despite that, he pulled off a superb performance at the ATP finals by beating Zverev, Medvedev, Federer and Thiem to win the trophy.
Tsitsipas is the 2019 Nitto ATP Finals champion.
One player who rose even further than Tsitsipas was Daniil Medvedev, whom I saw play at the Rogers Cup. Very tall at 6'6", he's 10 pounds lighter than Zverev at 186, or 30 lighter than Del Potro for the same height. This makes him look quite frail, especially compared to smaller but stronger players like Verdasco. Add to that his usual unsure look, and it doesn't seem like much of a threat at first, but he really is a good player. Light and agile, he's a really good server, as well as one of the best returners now. His awkward movements and flat backhand make him a very frustrating opponent to play against. He had the breakthrough at the end of the clay season when he defeated Tsitsipas and Djokovic in Monte Carlo and won to the final in Barcelona. He then endured a losing streak, but starting in August in Washington, he reached 6 consecutive finals, including the US Open, the Rogers Cup, and 2 Masters 1000 titles. That way he climbed up to 4th place in the rankings. Also note that despite his shy appearance, he has a temper of his own sometimes. Maybe it's because he's too salty. Matteo Berrettini is quite the opposite in some ways. He's much stronger for his height, with 6'5" and 210 pounds. He hits very hard and his serve kicks butt. But he's really a nice, quiet, respectful guy. Starting the year at 52nd place, he quickly rose in the ranking by winning the Hungarian Open and the Stuttgart title. Then at the US Open, he defeated an informed Rublev easily and Monfils in an extraordinary match to get to the semifinals, before hitting the Nadal wall. After other semifinals in Shanghai and Vienna, he became number 8 and participated in the Nitto ATP finals. Shapovalov started the year pretty slowly, never went really far in tournaments until the semifinals in Miami. Despite his rap abilities,
fighting like a wolf, I'll be back for more, so take care and good night. Know this, the good life.
He couldn't continue in that vein and declined in the rankings. But at the end of the year, he improved tremendously, as shown in his matches at the US Open. He then won his first title in Stockholm, but his finest performance was in Paris, where he beat Simon, Fognini, Zverev, and Monfils to reach the final of this tournament, in his best ranking yet, 15. Also note his performance at the Davis Cup with Pospisil was excellent. One hell of a combatant, and a very good returner is Alex de Minaur. This young Australian won 3 titles this year despite injuries that sidelined him for a while. He beat top 10 players 3 times this season, and thanks to a run to the Switzerland final,
Outstanding from de Minaur!
He finished the year number 18. Then finally, he performed superbly at the Next Gen tournament and got to his 2nd consecutive final there.
He's done it. Alex.
At only 18, Félix Auger-Aliassime went from outside the top 100 to inside the top 20. His stable temper and complete game allowed him to reach 3 finals and a Masters 1000 semi-final at Miami. He defeated Tsitsipas twice, and for a while, he was the number 1 Canadian player. He then stabilized in the rankings around number 20 for the rest of the year. The Russian Andrei Rublev is one example of a good comeback. A back injury prevented him from exercising and he lost much of 2018. The main problem with him before is that he had no variety in his shots, he was kind of machine-like, and he would get very frustrated when things didn't go so well. It seems that since the end of the summer he corrected that. His best shots remain his forehand, and when he starts hammering with his typical grunt, you know it's over.
Oh, klasse!
After beating Thiem in Hamburg, he lost in the final against Basilashvili, another player I like, but perhaps his best match was when he defeated Federer in straight sets. He followed that with a solid performance at the US Open, as well as his 2nd title in Moscow. I could go on talking about good players like Fritz, Garin, Hurkacz, Guerre, and so on, but I must make a mention here of Yannick Sinner. This young Italian practically came out of nowhere this year with the rank of 551. He won 3 challengers, as well as the Next Gen title in an incredible performance for an 18-year-old.
There we go.
Sinner is part of the Italian trust lately, along with Berrettini and Fognini. Now, I don't want to say things like, oh, he's gonna be top 20 or top 10 for sure, because it puts a lot of pressure on a player like that. But still, his win against de Minaur was a cliffhanger for 2020. Of course, I can't finish this video without mentioning a few players, the first of which is Dominic Thiem. He has come a long way since being a clay court runner with a repetitive style. This season, he won 5 titles, including a Masters 1000 and Indian Wells. He went to finals in the French Open and the ATP finals, defeated Federer 3 times, Djokovic twice, and Nadal once. One of his biggest strengths apart from skill and stamina is his mental game. I also had the chance to see a very good match with Roberto Bautista Agut against Gael Monfils. Roberto is the current number 9 and earned his place with the semi-finals in Wimbledon and other great performances including 1 title. Right behind him in the rankings is Monfils, who won a title this year. Monfils needs no introduction as an extremely athletic guy who will put on a big show with trick shots and acrobatics, while Bautista is much more sober in his style. So this match was a showman and flashy shot maker against a simple, stable, efficient player. The funny thing is that in Montreal, everybody knew Monfils and the crowd went crazy when he won points, while Bautista is quite unknown and I was one of the only guys clapping for him. As usual, Monfils hurt himself at his ankle, and people would say, if he didn't get injured, he would have won this match easily. But the thing is, Monfils getting injured because the way he plays, because he tries to get every ball in the most spectacular manner, so no wonder why he never won more than a title per year. I might anger some people here, but I'm not such a fan of Gael Monfils, partly because of that, but also when he doesn't feel like it in a match, he'll give a sloppy performance. He remains a great player anyway, but I prefer Roberto Bautista Agut. To end this video, I must give a word about David Ferrer, who retired this season. This incredible player was noticeable for several things, well, partly his big grunt. Maybe it's a Spanish thing, but mostly for this. After winning 27 titles, including the Paris Masters, he chose Madrid in his home country as his last tournament to end the career of one of the best and most humble tennis players.
To say just one thing. Muchas gracias, David Ferrer.